Good. Good evening. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. It's a great thing we have parents show up. You never know if there's going to be 50 people or 100 people that show up on something like this, but I appreciate you being here and listening tonight on a new way of thinking about the way we do middle school in Broken Arrow, and want to share that with you and get your feedback and input. I do want to start out with a little bit about, I've got the clicker, forgot here. First off, my name is Chuck Perry, and I am the superintendent of schools for the district. I want to take a minute and introduce a lot of great people over here who I work with. That's my team that all have various responsibilities across the district. We have 2,400 employees at Broken Arrow Public Schools. We're the largest employer in Broken Arrow, and I count on them so much to help me out, make good decisions, and keep me updated on all the things going on around the district. So real quick, first off, I want to introduce Natalie Ena. She's our Chief Financial Officer. Next to her is Mike Leach. He's our Director of Construction. And those two will be starting off tonight with some information. Then we'll pass it to Miss Sharon James. She is our Director of Secondary Education in the schools. We have Dr. Karla Dyess, who is our Deputy Superintendent for the district. We have Associate Superintendent Larry Shackelford, who is over a lot of the support services side of the house with custodials, work, maintenance, and construction. We have Steve Dunn, who is our Chief Student Engagement and Public Relations Officer. And we have next to him, Rosalind Van Jackson, who is our Chief Student Services and Support Director for the district. Sometimes I forget their titles exactly as they are, and I apologize. And then we have our Chief Technology Officer, Ashley Bowser. Tonight, I would really like to go through quite a bit of information and share with you and get your feedback. First all, we are here tonight. We do not have a final decision made on the direction we want to go, and we really do value our parental input, our staff input, and we want to take the time to share with you some of the why behind why this proposal came up and why that it may be an alternative to the way we have done middle school in the past. I think it's very important that we share all the information with you and be transparent about it. I think school districts work best where there's transparency between the district and the parents, and you feel a clear view of the direction the district is going. If you don't feel good about that, I don't think you're going to feel good about the education your child is receiving. So we want to be transparent. Tonight, too, we're going to give you some options with your cards to write down some questions as the night goes along. And at the very end, I'll take some time to answer those questions or do the best I can. And then also, before it gets too late and we dismiss, I'll stay here as late as I need to stay and answer questions one-on-one if you have further questions, because I want you to leave here with an understanding of, again, the why behind this proposal. A little about me. First off, I want you to know I am vested in Broken Arrow Public Schools. I'm a product of Broken Arrow Public Schools. I graduated here in 1987. My wife, been married 34 years. She's also a graduate of Broken Arrow Public Schools. This is my home, what I grew up with. Both of my parents graduated here in 1950. And mom and dad, decided to make BA their home for almost their entire lives. And as you can see, my brother in 70 and my sister in 75. I actually went to Sequoyah Middle School back in the early 80s, so it's always interesting to come in here, and it still smells a lot the same way as it did 30 years ago, but it brings back memories. I was in the same gym and had my physical education classes in here. My sister actually went to Sequoyah back when it was a 7th through 9th junior high in the 70s. So I'm vested in here in the district, and I want to make a great decision for the district so future boards, future superintendents have a system and structure to work with that's, at the end of the day, best for our kids, best for our student body. Sharing all that, the agenda, I shared with you a little bit about the purpose. I want to inform you and give you some background about the 2015 bond issue that this middle school project is listed in, and give you some background on it. The construction challenges, as you know, if you're trying to build a house today, the cost of building and supplies and materials has skyrocketed, and that plays a part in some different ways that we've done things in the past. We'll go through that 6th through 8th middle school option, a traditional middle school that we've had in Broken Arrow for, as far as I know, maybe 30, 40 back again until the mid-70s when that switched to the middle school's concept we have today. And then I want to share with you a different way to look at things with an 8th grade academy here at Sequoyah, moving the 8th graders out, moving the 6th and 7th graders out and dispersing them across the district in these remaining 4 middle schools, and bringing all the 8th graders over to this campus and the pluses and minuses of that. We'll take a look at the enrollment. There are some advantages for our student engagement groups with our student activities, our athletics, and our fine arts I would like to share. And then next steps would be at the end of the night, after you have a chance for question and answer. Early next week, we'd like to send a survey out to all parents and staff, provide a synopsis of the why behind this decision, and get feedback from that also that we will share. We'll answer questions from the note cards, and then again, as you can see, we have many departments here tonight. If you have specific questions about a particular area, again, we will stay as long as we need to answer questions, and if we don't know an answer, we will get back with you too. We'll get your information, find that out, and communicate back to you. So to start off, I would like to invite Ms. Enoff up here, our Chief Financial Officer, and just to go through the 2015 bond issue that was voted on, how it was structured, and how that impacts our decision today. So, Ms. Enoff.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Good evening, everyone. In 2015, the Broken Arrow community passed a record-setting $370 million bond issue. Of that, $361 million was dedicated to new construction, adding additional classroom space across the district, instructional technology items. $9 million of that was allocated for transportation. We had the tagline at the 2015 bond issue as "Here We Grow." And the reason that was because we were facing unprecedented growth, very rapid growth in the district, and needed additional classroom space and buildings in order to keep up with that growth. So right now we are in the middle, pretty much right in the middle of the third phase of the bond issue. We started constructing buildings and additional classroom space in 2016. And so over the past 7 years, you've seen a flurry of activity across the district in terms of construction going on. Just some of the buildings that have opened up in the first two phases, we had Timber Ridge come online, Rosewood, additions to the high school, our beautiful Vanguard Academy, which serves as our STEM site, which we were very proud of, Freshman Academy additions, renovations to Childers and Oliver, and renovations and additions right here in Sequoyah. So to date, over $138 million has been added in additional instructional space across the district. And again, this is primarily due to the rapid growth that the district has experienced, especially east in Wagner County and in the southern parts of the district. And so I am now going to turn it over to Mr. Leach to discuss some of the construction.
And as we talked through these construction challenges and the costs of material and labor, we'll begin sharing those two options. And I want to be upfront from the beginning when we share those two options. I don't have a perfect answer. I could probably sell you on option one is better than option two, or vice versa. Going into this, there's a multitude of structures we researched across the country on how different middle schools and junior highs were set up. But again, we got to figure out the one that's best for Broken Arrow and our kids and fits our community. So we'll talk about those challenges.
Thanks, Mr. Perry. So with the 2015 bond issue with the middle school that's here in phase 3 of the bond, it allocated $30 million for the construction of a new middle school. So after the financial fees are paid to the financial institution, leaves us with roughly $25 million to build a building. So in 2015, when the bond was passed and that money was allotted, that would have built us a nice middle school. Our middle schools run about 135,000 square feet, and that would have built us a nice middle school. But with the rising cost of construction today, and I'll get into that in a second, to build a middle school of that size would cost over $46 million today. So from the time that we engage an architect to the time that we're ready to go out to bid on a project, it generally takes about 10 months for a project of that size. And with the rapid increase with construction costs, just in that 10 months, it's very possible to see cost increases upwards of 20%. So Rosewood Elementary, as a good example, was completed 2 years ago. When that project bid, it went for $227 a square foot 2 years ago. In today's construction costs would be about $300 a square foot. So typically in construction, we see about a 4% cost escalation per year in costs. And that's historic. You can go back 20 years and track it. It's about 4% a year. But just in the past 2 years of the pandemic, with all sorts of supply chain and shortage issues, just in the past 2 years, we've seen an increase of about 32% in construction costs. So since the bond was passed in 2015, that's over a 50% escalation in construction costs.
And looking at these options and option 1 and 2, this kind of gives you an idea of the timeline that we have been working on this project. Back in the spring, we started discussing some sites and the best uses of available lands. And I'm going to get into just a second. Timber Ridge Elementary, if you know where that's at, off 71st Street, next to the new Walmart. There is some land below that that is just south of that elementary that we felt like would be a good place to build and put that new middle school there. When we started looking in fall in 2021 and had Mr. Leach really start running some numbers on the cost and how much they have escalated, that's when we started getting the eye-opening realization that we weren't anywhere close to building, being able to build a middle school that we originally planned. We looked at a ton of different options, everything from the freshman academy. We talked about building a 8th grade academy on the freshman academy campus, but the cost to do that would be even higher at $55 million to hold about 1,800 students. There was also some drawbacks with the in and out, the traffic flow off 101st Street when you already have 1,500 students there, adding another 1,500, and there is basically one way in and one way out. We checked with the city to see if there were other possibilities for some additional roads one day out to Elm or back east to Lynn Lane, and there was really no way to do that on the immediate future that we could take a look at and say, yes, let's build it. That gives us a route out. Part of it was some private land to the east of it that we weren't sure we could purchase, and then there were a multitude of reasons with some drainage issues to go out west to Elm that the city was concerned about. So over the winter, we really started taking a look at things, even in depth, looking at all of our options. We had a committee comprised of this team that you see up here, middle school principals, people from transportation department, people that would be involved with constructing it and planning it. And we met probably 5 or 6 times, and that's when we came up with the idea of Sequoyah Middle School may be a best option other than the one that we'll look at, and we'll show you why here in a moment. We do need to make a decision by this summer to meet an opening in the 24-25 school year would be our target we'd want to open. And that would start with this fall, getting those architects involved and spending about 10 months designing and planning. It's where you do a lot of programming, where you bring teachers and principals in, get their input on what a classroom scenario looks like inside the classroom, how they'd want to place different projects or programs within the school, and then start that development, the bidding and construction a year from now, next spring, for it to be open for the 24-25 school year. So let's take a look at those two options. Again, option one would be build a traditional 6th through 8th middle school that we have known in Broken Arrow for many years, again, that I went through in the 80s on the property that sits just south of Timber Ridge Elementary. The concern is with the funds available is to meet a decent number of kids. I want to, roughly our estimates right now, it would hold a maximum of only 500 students at that site on what we're able to build because of the cost of, you've got to get a road in there now. We have to bring all the utilities in, the water, the sewer. We have to lay lots of asphalt for parking. A lot of things that we would not have to do with an existing project. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the cafeteria and some other things in there, Mr. Leach.
Yeah, so some of the higher priced items, like the new cafeteria, it's specialized construction. There's a lot of special things that have to go into cafeterias to meet health department requirements, and all of the equipment that goes into the cafeteria is very, very expensive. I mean, we're not going down to Bed Bath & Beyond and getting a KitchenAid. I mean, some of these pieces of equipment are thousands and thousands of dollars each. So also, like Mr. Perry mentioned, running site utilities gets very expensive. Running, water, sewer, gas, and so forth, electric, asphalt, building roads. Right now, road construction, just for a simple 2-lane road, is about $400,000 per quarter mile. So, you know, we're trying to find an ideal spot on the site where we don't have to build much roads, but we still have to lay out a lot of asphalt for parking. Also thinking about bus loops and parent stacking for parental drop-offs and pickups, a good amount of off-street stacking space.
And that gets us to that next issue of our general fund. We have our ad valorem and bond dollars that are voted on by the public that are used for capital improvements and construction, that monies would be spent. Again, I hate it that a lot of those monies would be spent on ancillary things such as the cafeteria, media center, and some things that are not in place that we would have to add that are, as you'll see in a moment, that we have on this campus here. The biggest thing to me, though, as we look at our budget every year coming out of the general fund, which is our state allocation we receive to pay for salaries, every time you add a school, there is about $1 million of reoccurring cost that is added to the budget. And that involves hiring new administration, 3 new principals. You've got to hire new custodians. You've got to hire new cafeteria workers. You're having to replicate a lot of the course offerings at another middle school and hiring those same teachers that could be used in a combination of classrooms or classes at 1 or 2 middle schools across the district. That's one thing that's interesting about Broken Arrow. We do have a lot of square miles in the district, but we have a lot of schools. We have, right now, as I might have mentioned, we have 16 elementary schools. You compare that to Jinx and a lot of the other schools around here, Bixby, they're building these large mega elementary schools to save cost on, again, those items that are a reoccurring add to the budget that don't go away to keep another school going. I'm not saying our plan is worse as far as I like our smaller community schools in a lot of ways. I like our neighborhood schools. There's a lot of pluses to it, but at the same time, it does cause a lot of additions to the budget that might be able to better be spent in the classroom and hiring more teachers, reducing class sizes, and that's where this option 2, a lot of the thought process came out of. Also, that last thing that we talked about, currently, there is a lot of concern that I'm not naive to at all about the one and done year at the freshman academy. Hear that a lot. In addition, why are we adding another 8th grade academy that again is they're coming from the middle school for 5-6 years, going into 6th and 7th grade academy for 2 years, and then 1 year, and then a 3-year. There's concerns that our students don't get to know the faculty. They don't feel like it's home. They spend the first 9 weeks there. I totally understand and get that. We've got to do some things better on our district part as far as spending some time a year in advance, really preparing our 8th graders coming into the freshman year. It's been eye-opening this year that we have to do a better job in that. But if you look at what would be entering the freshman academy by adding another middle school, instead of having 5 entering to 1, now we have 6 middle schools entering to 1, which again, they're checking each other out. I don't know if that's a horrible thing adding the 6, but that is a concern to some degree of mine. In addition to, we would be reducing it by adding an 8th grade academy from 5 that we have now, maybe 6, down to 4 into one campus at the freshman academy or the 8th grade academy. But again, I want you to know, I'm very cognizant of that 1-year transition, that this plan here does not add that at the 8th grade like we have at the freshman academy. Looking at option 2, what would that entail? Why did we pick Sequoyah? One was its proximity to the freshman academy, and we're going to get into some academic benefits of that. Number 2, it's a very centrally located school here in Broken Arrow off a main thoroughfare of Elm. The stacking space, there's a lot of pluses to that, but talk about the construction that what we could use and build here as opposed to at Timber Ridge.
So at this location, since we already have a lot of resources existing, we're just adding on to the space. And not exactly in addition. According to the bond language, everything has to be new construction. So a classroom building, an auxiliary gym, anything additional for cafeteria space would be a new building or not connected. So what we're envisioning is about a 42,000 square foot, 2-story classroom building here on the southeast corner of the existing building, and possibly connect those with at least a breezeway or an enclosed link so students could pass across and stay out of the weather, at least stay out of the rain. We'd have about 32 traditional size classrooms, 16 on each floor. It's generally cheaper to go up than it is to go out. Foundations can cost you about 12% of your building cost, so it interested us to go up. The auxiliary gym be about a 20,000 square foot auxiliary gym, which is essentially twice this. It'd be 2 full-size basketball courts with a divider curtain that would allow us to keep all the 8th graders on site and not have to go anyplace else for basketball practice or volleyball practice. And then also about 5,000 square feet of additional cafeteria space. Our current kitchen is in pretty good shape. Might need a little bit more for food prep there, maybe a little bit more storage, but we do need more seating space. So maybe something that would be like a grab and go, something to be kind of exciting for the students, and just, you know, traditional, go through the line and get your tray and sit down. Versus, you want me to continue about Timber Ridge?
Yes, kind of talk about the monies that could be directed towards the classrooms, more classroom space here than as opposed to Timber Ridge, where a lot of those monies, like the cafeteria here, there was a renovation in 2015 bond issue on that. I don't know if you've been over to see the cafeteria, but it's very nice, and we would just had to add, again, some additional service areas and seating areas for it. The media center was renovated, have a nice media center here now on campus. We have great fine art spaces. We have a new front office area that I think was originally part of the 2009 bond. So we have some bones here to work with that we just be adding on to, and more of our monies could be directed to classroom space here. So I think that covers it. So saying all this, we don't want it to be just about money. We want it to be for our students and the academy or academic benefits. If we went with an 8th grade academy, I would like to talk about those and let you kind of digest the pluses and minuses of that with that part of it. So.
All right, we'll go ahead and start talking a little bit about our instructional benefits. When we first started looking at our different options, one of the things we wanted to do was really research the instructional piece. Is it going to be beneficial? And would it address some of our challenges that we have in place currently? One of those things, could you go back, Mr. Perry? I'm sorry. One more, please. Yeah, there we go. One of the things we've noticed is that with our students who are wanting to do advanced math credit or other high school credits, one of the struggles we have is the consistency across those middle school sites. So like for Sequoyah right now, they are shuttled to BAFA because they don't have an ability to have it here. They don't have a big enough section. So they get up a little earlier to go to take class at BAFA. Whereas some of the other sites do have enough sections to make a course. So we hate that there's a burden on some of our students to take advantage of those advanced options that we have available. In addition, we have so many programming. We have concurrent enrollment. We have Tulsa Tech, we have Vanguard, we have our early college high school programs that are awesome. But some of the things the students need to do to get ahead, to say I'm gonna work off some of those state required graduation requirements so that I can take advantage of those opportunities that I have. So we'd be able to offer more of those if we're in an 8th grade academy where they would have more teachers who were certified at the high school level and could teach that. We really want to focus on that consistency. Like I said, we want students to all have the advantage to engage in those advanced classes if they want to. Also, one of the things when we started looking at the benefits for 8th grade academy is really about leadership skills. All research told us that for students to be successful moving into 9th grade, they really need to have those leadership skills where they feel confident, they're able to advocate for themselves, and we can do that through leadership classes. Through those classes, they become more confident, thus they tend to be more effective in their classes, their grades go up, and graduation rates are also go up through some of the research we've read. So our goal would be to add that elective where all students are experiencing that. In addition, with 8th grade academy, one thing we talked about as the community is that we could team at the 8th grade. We have 2 buildings, we could have 4 communities, you know, you could have the Hufflepuffs and the, you know, whatever, you could have group A or the red group, so that they have a smaller sense of community and then be intentional about when they come together as a whole and interact out and about through different interactions throughout the day. So we would also focus on that transition planning, like Mr. Perry said. We can do that job of getting in front of them as they transfer from 7th grade up to 8th grade, and then again repeat that when they move into 9th grade. Our excitement about this is that we could collaborate, though it can impact 9th grade as well. If we can collaborate between the 8th grade and 9th grade, those teachers are collaborating. Also, some of our teachers at middle school suggested, like, hey, we need to have advocates who are moving up with the 9th graders. It could be counselors loop up. They work with them in 8th grade, they move into the 9th grade academy. Or there's teachers that are doing advisory. Maybe they're the ones that loop up. We could be creative in how that looks so that as students move to 9th grade, they have a relationship built with some of those other adults as they move into that building. We want to be very intentional, too, with our communication to keep everybody informed, and we'll talk about that in a minute. One of our challenges is educating our families and our students on their opportunities. And to take advantage of concurrent enrollment, to take advantage of Tulsa Tech, to go into a career field and get certifications, there's so much to it that we as adults right now didn't have to do or discover when we were younger, that these kiddos are having to figure out as they make a decision about what their pathway is going to be. So we can be more intentional and have that communication with families and with the students. And just be very targeted about what 8th grade students would need, what those teachers need, what certifications they would need. We'd be able to do that holistically through that 8th grade academy. Also on this, we looked at mentoring opportunities. One of the things we looked at is that they do need that peer interaction. That's one thing they would be missing as an 8th grade. They wouldn't have somebody above them or younger than them. So we would have to build in mentoring opportunities. Maybe 10th graders at the high school come down through leadership opportunities. Maybe the 9th grade and 8th grade, they do mentoring opportunities as well. But then also they could go forth and mentor with maybe the 7th and 6th graders at the middle schools that we offer. So really building those interactions throughout the year for those students. The next piece we looked at, sorry, Mr. Berry.
And let me add in there, I think that's, and we'll touch on that a little bit in this next slide too, but with our current setup, 6th through 8th grade, my question is, are we best preparing our 8th grade students to enter their high school transcripted years with the current structure we have? It is difficult at times to be very intentional about it across 5 middle schools to prepare them for their 9th grade and entering that launch year for the high school. And sometimes I feel like when we do things at the middle school level, it is we're just hitting a safe place in the middle between our 6th and 8th graders. What may be cool for the 6th graders or something fun, positive For the 8th graders, they may be way past that because of the age group, or because of the age gap. I would like to be able to really focus in and prepare our 8th graders so they are the most successful and really understand and are the best prepared for their 9th grade year, because it's such a crucial year, not only in their graduation, but courses they take and the career paths, and that's what that'll lead into here.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Mr. Perry, because as we looked at things, one of the struggles we had is that if we want to come in and move our 9th grade counselors to come and work with the middle school with 8th graders, it's almost the whole building has to come to a standstill because we have too many teachers teaching 2 preps. So that means they're teaching maybe 6th grade math, 3 sections, and then a 7th grade math, and maybe some of them may be doing like an Algebra 1 prep. So that's 3 different classes they're teaching. So it's hard for us to say, okay, 8th grade teachers and students, come over here to the gym. We're going to do something holistically with you, but 7th and 6th, they're going to keep working. We're not able to accomplish that. So by moving at the 8th grade, everything could come to a standstill, and we could be very intentional and purposeful about the time we have with those students, because all the teachers are just with them. So all teachers would be on deck supporting whatever process or practice we were doing that day. So when we look at high school career readiness, one thing we're struggling with, not struggling, we're trying and we're doing a good job, but we could do such a better job, is building understanding. Students are going to pre-enrollment, and some of you may have experienced this. You go with your kiddos, you're meeting with them, their counselors come visit with them during the day, you meet with them in the evening for 30 minutes, and you hear all of these different options that you have. And your students are like, okay, I'm going to choose this and that. But we're making decisions, or students are making post-secondary decisions on a very brief understanding of what their options are. So through 8th grade, we could be more purposeful about that, and students would begin to connect. These are my courses, and they will align me to reach my post-secondary goal. If I want to go to college, I can do concurrent, but I have to have this, or I've got to be able to do this. If I want to go into directly to the workforce, I can earn certifications. We have opportunities for that at the high school, but students have to be able to take those courses during the day so they could get some of those classes out of the way. Maybe I'm going to be an NCAA athlete, and I want to go participate. Well, there's certain courses that will allow you to go do that NCAA will accept. We would have more time, a whole year, to really help students understand that and work with families at the same time so that you could support your kids as they're saying, hey, this is my academic plan, this is my career goals, and these are the courses or programs that we offer here that would allow them to meet those goals. So really helping work with them on those meaningful connections about this course will help relate to this, and you could do that for your career goal. Also providing more time to become familiar with those opportunities. We have lots of courses, and so students will take something and they didn't realize I had to have that before I could take this, so we could spend time building their understanding of what their options could be. And then transitioning that readiness to BAFA, like we talked about, 8th grade is the perfect year, and research and every study we've looked at said you've got to integrate some leadership skills for those students. They have to be able to advocate. They have to be able to speak and share what their goals are. But through that, if it's happening in 9th grade, we could push that to 8th grade for the leadership, and then 9th grade, we could focus on those soft skills they need to be successful when they go to the workplace. We have a lot of students take advantage of our work-based learning, internships, concurrent, and a lot of our partners will say, your students are missing this skill set or this soft skill that we need you to focus on. So we could help close that gap with them by offering leadership at 8th grade and then offering other opportunities for those soft skills that students need to be able to go to work or do internships.
I say this a lot because I heard it at a conference and it really resonated with me. The speaker said if Rip Van Winkle woke up in America, the only thing that he would recognize would be public schools, because we're doing them a lot of the same ways that we were 50 years ago. The world is changing. We're having to prepare our graduates in a different way than ever before. Keep hearing that 80% of the jobs that are going to be out here in 10 years have not even been created yet. We are doing our students a disservice, if we are handing them a high school diploma as they walk across the stage, and that's it. Because you cannot earn a meaningful wage with a high school diploma. You could, 30, 40 years ago, you could raise a family. You could build a career off of it. It's getting very difficult to do. We're trying to provide students with certifications and making sure if they want to be prepared for a college degree, we're giving them the skill sets with that, but giving them real world work opportunities before they get that diploma, so when they walk across that stage, they do have some concrete opportunities. And does that mean they have to stay in that career forever? No, that at least they're learning and deciding what's the best fit for them. Now, we've talked a lot about the 8th grade benefits of this plan. One thing that keeps coming up again and again is the 6th and 7th grade benefits of them being at school just together at those 4 sites.
This was one of the pieces that, as we began to research, we were focusing on 8th grade, like, is this option feasible and beneficial? But one of the things we found was the benefits that we could see for 6th and 7th graders. So one of the things we noticed, and two, we noticed with our students, we also see in our research, is that students coming up to middle school tend to lose engagement at 6th grade. They tend to have a drop-off a little bit on their school achievement. So it's like, what could we do at the 6th and 7th to help promote that and prevent that from happening? And what we could do is be intentional about the strategies that we use for 6th grade or for 7th graders. One of the things we've noticed, like Mr. Perry said, we're kind of hitting in the middle and trying to take care of all students. We could be intentional with them. We could change and be creative with our master schedule. We could offer other opportunities for those students to feel more comfortable. That first day, they're just trying to find out where their 6 different classes are. They've come from a classroom that was whole class, they had one teacher, and they're struggling just to move about like in a middle school. So it would allow us to really focus and offer more supports for them. We want to provide activities that are appropriate. One of the things we could do, like when we look at attendance or encourage students to do well or support them in their learning, things that excite a 6th grader and that would incentivize them to do things is not what works for an 8th grader. So if we try to do that with 6th grade, they'd get excited, but when their 8th grade peer goes, that's not cool, they're going to say, that's not cool, and I'm not doing that. So we kind of pull that away a little bit, and we could focus on things that are more focused for them, what they enjoy, what excites them, and makes them what incentivizes them to be in school and to be engaged. So instructionally, too, we could look at 2 years of standards and skills and allow for more learning and instruction. Right now, at the middle school level, we offer English, ELA, and we split that between reading and English. What we'd like to do through this process would allow us to split that. Let's offer ELA, grammar, and the writing piece in a course, but then also focus on reading as a separate course that we could offer with them, because we could be creative in our master schedule to do that. We also tend to see that negative, that top dog, bottom dog effect, so it might help us with that to kind of clear out those inequalities between their age gaps. We have some students coming up from 6th grade who are 11, not quite 12, and we have 15-year-olds as 8th grade. So it's a big age gap that we're seeing. So by moving into the 8th grade, it would help eliminate the challenges we're seeing with that big of an age gap. And last, our school counselors could extend that. So they're focused on 6th and 7th, and then we have at the academy 8th grade who are focused and have the capacity to help guide students and help build their understanding what their options are, while at the same time at 6th, 7th, those counselors would understand what those students need and could support them in the ways that their age would need them to be addressed and supported.
Just to touch on a couple other things. First off, I'd like to share about our student activities program at the high school that I'd really like to expand down to our lower grade levels. 8-9 years ago, we had a leadership class at the high school, mainly comprised of our student council and government leaders at the high school, with about 40 students in the class. Today, we have over 10 classes with 2 different teachers and 250 students now involved in our leadership program, and it's an open elective to about any student to apply to get into. And it's a class about life and leadership and the things that it takes to be successful, such as perseverance and grit and resiliency, and what employers are looking for, what it means to be a Broken Arrow Tiger. And part of those responsibilities of that leadership class is we provide a Tiger Camp every year for those students that are entering the high school as 10th graders or new students. Shame on us, we have not been that intentional about our freshmen coming in to the freshman academy. We're going to change that next year. You got my word on that. We're going to do better at that. If we would look at this plan here, we'd have to do the same thing with the 8th graders, establish that leadership component as part of the school, because now at the high school, it's part of our school identity now to be a part of that class, and we've got kids involved in that class that typically wouldn't be engaged in other student activity groups across the campus. So we would need to continue to grow that. Again, with our leadership class, we have students, it has grown so much. We have a leadership classes, and then we have advanced leadership classes now, which is those students that have really excelled in that area. And we need to, we started this year for the first time of getting them down into the freshman academy, but we need to do that more and get them into our middle schools also. And if we did this plan, obviously our 8th grade academy. And the year before, I really think this next year coming up, we've got to get our 8th graders, get a cross-section of students from all 5 middle schools, spend at least 5 meetings where all of those kids are coming together. They're meeting each time at a different middle school to realize that they're all Broken Arrow Tigers. Doesn't matter which school you're going to, all facing the same challenges, that they built some connections, some friendships, some plans for that freshman academy year, work together, so when they enter, again, we have a plan, they've got some connections, and I think it'll be a smoother transition than what we're dealing with now. Fine arts, a couple of things there. It's the ability to expand our fine arts programs. Broken Arrow is known as a school district that invests in the arts. We want to continue to do that. I think we'd be able to offer a variety of classes at the 8th grade academy that we're not able to do because a lot of those teachers now are spread out teaching our 6th and 7th grade students. We have the fine arts facilities, the new black box, and it's the high school band room and some things here at Sequoyah that were just recently built. We would like to, as I talked about, the accelerated programs, and then the more continuity of instruction, again, coming from 5 middle schools to strengthen our fine arts program at the high school. They get more equitable instruction and teaching if it's all in one area, and spread those resources out. We hope it's going to have a positive effect on retention rates, to be more intentional about it, and again, not duplicating those positions across the 5 middle schools. We're able to use the staff we have now and use them more in a variety of ways to touch more students than, again, across the 5. Athletic benefits, the biggest downfall with athletics right now between 5 middle schools is our shuttles. We have some students riding on a shuttle before they get to practice 6th hour for approximately 40 minutes. And that's not good. We're a better school district than that by the time they get there. And the different spots that we practice at and getting them all dropped off, having as many things as we can here on campus will cut that down. And again, having the directors and coaches from those areas on campus to keep those students motivated and engaged, not only to help in their athletic or fine arts competition side of it, but the academic side also. And without the shuttles, you got more time to coach skills and able to just develop young men and women more. We hope our coaches are making that impact on life the more that they see them and spend time not on shuttles but working with them here at a site. Enrollment perspective. We've really studied this a lot, and the numbers and how this will affect, because we're in a growing community. And I'm going to ask Mr. Bowser, our Chief Technology Officer. We have looked at that, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Bowser.
Okay, well, I love a good spreadsheet. I don't know how you all feel about that, but I love to look at what the data tells us. And so this first slide talks about, it gives us a look at what our current middle school configuration would look like, or what it looks like with enrollment data numbers as of March of this school year. And what we've done is we've taken those enrollment numbers and then figured the capacity for each of our current middle school sites. And so you can see like capacity being like how many more students could a school realistically take. And Centennial has about 8% capacity left. Oneida Ridge has about 13%, and then all of the others are in the 20s. If we were to build a 6th middle school of a capacity of about 500 kids, based on the information that we've been presented so far, projecting out enrollment data and looking into the future, you can see that it would have a positive impact on our capacities. Centennial would go from 8 to 12, Oneida Ridge 13 to 26, and the others would go up as a result of that. We would still have about maybe 14% capacity left in middle school number 6, because typically when you look at all of our sites, it's not like we would necessarily fill it to capacity. You have to allow room for growth, right? You have to allow room. We are a booming community, lots of houses going up in neighborhoods all across the community, and so we try to leave a little room for growth in each of those school sites. If we did the 8th grade model, with a school site of 1,800, then those capacities change a little bit. You'll see projected enrollment goes down significantly for a school site like Centennial on the north side of town. Our other school sites would all be in the 30s as far as percentage of capacity. And so for me, I just look at what the data tells me. And the data tells me that, first of all, that this tells me why we need a middle school. Our rapid growth and projected growth into the future tells us that we're running out of space at our school sites, and so this actually provides us an opportunity to be able to maximize that space for our 6th and 7th graders, and then still have some room for growth at the 8th grade center. And so this data kind of helps illustrate the difference between a 6th middle school versus the 8th grade academy.
Next steps. First of all, I would like to take time to get your note cards. Let us gather those to make sure I'm able to try to get to answer all of your questions. Sometimes we have some duplicates, or if I don't get to yours, again, please come see me afterwards. To close, before we get to the questions, I want to stress no decision has been made on this. We could build another 6th through 7th grade or 6th through 8th grade middle school on the Timber Ridge property very easily. In fact, it'd be easier for me. It'd be the easy thing for me to do. But I feel like it'd be remiss if we didn't at least present this, talk about it, vet it out, look at the pros and cons. Again, I'm not trying to sell you on anything tonight that the one is better than the other. I just need your input on a new way of looking and doing things across the district. I often say, I don't own this company. I don't own this school district. You do, the taxpayers. I have a role to make some decisions from the input I receive, and I want to make good decisions, again, that do not handcuff and cause issues down the road for future superintendents, for future boards, that they do have some flexibility. So trying to divide these up with different subject areas. Just take a couple here. Quite a few. If current middle schools each offer a non-athletic club like robotics with 20 members. Will an 8th grade center offer the same but for 100 students, or will less students have to be an option? This question has come up a lot, and I think it's a very valid question. We do not want engagement numbers to go down. We want the same amount of opportunities that we have currently to stay available for our students. The question of show choir came up, I think, the last meeting. You know, we have 5 different show choirs across the district, and the parent felt like my daughter's competing against maybe, 35, 40 other students at this one site. Now they're going to be competing against, 300 or 200 students at all 5 groups coming together. I feel like, and I've talked with our fine arts folks, we feel like there's ways we can have multiple show choir teams. I think we can have multiple robotics teams. They may not be at 5 different sites, but we do want the numbers to go down, and we want to have the same opportunities. Any consideration for 2 8th and 9th grade buildings instead of 2 single grade buildings? This was brought up recently. We did present all of this information that we're presenting now to the faculties of all 5 middle schools over this past month. We got to the parent brought up our last meeting and said, have you presented to the freshman academy yet? And I thought, we haven't. And so we fit that in yesterday, talked with them because I thought it was a good idea to get their feedback, and this consideration was brought up. We are looking into that right now as a possible option of could we do a 6th and 7th grade, 4 of them, and take freshman academy, make it an 8th and 9th grade academy where you have some mentorship with the 9th graders. We're not spending 1 year at a building, spending 2, and doing that, splitting that group up with the Sequoyah and doing the same thing there. There's some legalities with the bond issue we've got to check out to see if that would work. But again, that's why we do these forums, to get your feedback. I think there's some positives to that. We've got to work through it. We need to make sure it's academically a good plan for us, but we are studying that. But that, please know, we just looked at that starting yesterday, so that's going to take a little bit of time. It says current middle school enrollment from elementary has been very chaotic. Counselors don't know middle school options and impacts. They only know their own schools. It takes several weeks for IEP 504 plans to transition between schools. I worry this will be worse with multiple school changes in only a few years. Again, valid concern. The more transitions you have, you've got to have more safeguards in place. I can't say up here right now, I'm not going to tell you that moving to an 8th grade option would be less. I don't know if anybody from the academic side and the counseling option, we've got to do better with our counselors. Not that it's their fault, but making sure they have the resources to give our students all the options. As we move to an academy approach across our high schools, now that we have Vanguard, early college high, we've got thoughts of a manufacturing high school down the road. We need to make sure students, when they are in the 8th grade, know that some choices they make going into the 9th grade year are going to impact their availability to get in to those different opportunities, and how that will affect at the end of the road too, with requirements for NCAA requirements that they're going into an athletic field. There's a lot to it, so I agree with that could be an issue that we'd have to work through. One stated benefit is less administration. Will this mean an increase in students per principal? What I was saying there is adding that 6th middle school that we would add a new principal, 1 or 2 assistants with that. At the 8th grade academy, I think we could keep our numbers pretty close to what we have right now. At the end of the day, it would be less because we're not having to add, again, a brand new school and coverage. It is a possibility we might add an assistant principal. We added an assistant principal at the freshman academy this year at the semester. We felt like we needed more supervision at that site. So that would be, I think at the end of the day, adding another school, it's going to be more administrative costs. I can guarantee you it's going to be more child nutrition costs, more custodial costs, it's just more places to clean, to mow. I mean, I can tell you, I heard this today, every time we do a mowing in Broken Arrow Public Schools, if you see a day of that going out, that's $10,000 out of our budget. So anytime we mow our properties, and the more properties we add, that's more to mow, more air conditioning units, more heating units, so it's a lot more to keep up with. Moving along with questions. You have some there you could answer?
I've got plenty. If you like, Mr. Perry, I can read the questions.
Sure, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Am I on?
There you go.
Thank you. Question number 1, why are we not splitting the high school? That is where the greater need is.
Always seems to come up. There was a high school configuration study about 5 or 6 years ago. I could go into probably an hour of talking about this. At this time, we are not discussing a split of the high school. Again, we are looking at an academy approach. That would be something a board would have to take a look at and make a decision. And I can tell you with our current bond dollars, we do not have any allocated to create a second high school. There is a lot of opinions about that. I hear that, trust me, on a regular basis, the pros and cons. I have people tell me they moved to Broken Arrow because of the opportunities that Broken Arrow is able to offer with the larger high school. And then, of course, I hear the same side of it, we're too big. We lose students in the cracks because it's so big. I don't really want to get into that right now. I'd be happy to talk to somebody that offline. I want to stay focused on this. But that's a discussion. I can tell you right now there's nothing bond issue allocated for that we would be able to even build that until the next bond issue.
Where would the kids that go here, Sequoyah, where would they go? Would they overcrowd those classrooms?
That goes back to the enrollment slides. We will, either option that we go with, we're going to increase capacity. We're going to increase classroom space. Again, 6th and 7th graders here, we would have to redistrict them through the remaining 4 middle schools. If we add a 6th middle school separate, we're going to have to redistrict there too. So we're going to have to redistrict either way. Again, I'm going to go back to the reoccurring costs. That kind of bothers me in the long run of adding another school adds that reoccurring cost to the general fund, which adds salary costs that I would hope we could put back into hiring teachers and allow us to have smaller class sizes. I don't have any hard and fast numbers for you today to say it would reduce them by this much, but I think those dollars could be directed back to the classroom as opposed to opening another school. So that's where I really want to make a good decision as we think about these things.
How would having an 8th grade center reduce the amount of kids going to BAFA? Seems like the same amount being funneled to an 8th grade center would be funneled to BAFA regardless of how many middle schools there are.
It would be funneling the same amount. It wouldn't be reducing it at all. it would be hopefully a better connection. The thing I hear from BAFA a lot, and even heard it from their faculty yesterday, is they feel like they get all 5 of those middle schools come from different, when you hire 5 different principals, they each have their own philosophies of how the building is run. It's unique, and trying to assimilate them, create an identity, bond them together, that they're all Broken Arrow Tigers together, they're on this together, sometimes takes about 9 weeks to do so, if maybe even longer. So the more schools we add funneling into one won't reduce the number of students, it'll just reduce the number of sites they're coming to, if that makes sense.
Why can't we offer advanced classes / leadership classes in current middle schools?
We can. It's just more difficult to do than having all the 8th graders at one place. That's the difficult thing with our high school administration, getting to 5 different middle schools, providing those mentoring opportunities to tell them what the expectation is going to be, what's the academic expectation going to be. We talked a lot. I have a student advisory group that I meet with every other month at the high school, and it's a lot of just open question and answer. One of the questions I asked them this past week was, what would be the one thing you would improve about Broken Arrow schools or could change? And they talked about entering the freshman academy was a big shock to them. They went from a middle school, very safe environment to boom, high school, and they felt like at times that it's a feeling that, man, this is all transcripted. This is a lot more homework than I had at the middle school level. I wish I had a little bit more preparation with it. That would be, again, some thought with them all being together. Could we do that across 5 middle schools? Of course we can. But being more intentional about it at one place would be the goal of bringing them together.
Could we make Haskell a middle school again and just add on to that building, realizing we would need to move options?
I don't know if we would have enough space to do that now. We have plans to expand our options academy. We feel like it's a great place as an alternative to our high school setting. We have a lot of students for a variety of reasons, maybe even personal things that are happening in their home life. Maybe they have anxiety or battling some things that they don't feel comfortable in the high school campus, and they get a little bit more targeted, a lot more wraparound resources there at the Options Academy. So our goal is to expand that, and Broken Arrow Virtual Academy, which is housed there too, and being able to use that campus in that way is the plan long term. In addition, the whole front of Haskell, and I taught there for 6 years back in the 90s, that whole front wing you see when you drive down Lynn Lane, that is practically inhabitable now. It is the original elementary school, if people remember back in the day when it was an elementary school, back in the 70s and again early 80s. That is pretty dilapidated now, and the money that it would take to get that up and running again would not be worth sinking into it. In fact, we've talked a lot about, once we have the funds available, of demolishing that because it's just used for storage now. There's no classes that are operating in that.
How will Sequoyah current cafeteria feed 4 times as much? I can take that if you like.
Okay.
So the enrollment at Sequoyah would only increase by 2 times. There's currently about 700 students here, 750, and the enrollment would increase to about 1,300. And that's also, as part of the plan, is to increase the cafeteria space by about 5,000 square feet And I've already visited with an architect a little bit just about some of our conceptual plans, and there are some options that we can go to in the existing cafeteria. In the existing cafeteria, if you've seen it, there's round seating, and it's really not the most efficient. Won't seat the most number of students that we could fit in there per square foot. So there's some other options with linear seating that we can seat more kids in the existing cafeteria along with adding on. Next question. Current teacher-student ratio is too high. How is that going to improve?
How's that going to improve? I can't tell you exactly with this plan how it would improve, except again, saving those dollars on the front end out of that general fund. Ms. Enoff, how much of our general fund, that state allocation that we receive, is spent on salaries?
Roughly 85 to 90% is spent on recurring salary and benefit costs. So when you look at our overall general fund budget, approximately 10% of that is only left for our overhead fixed costs, utilities, supplies, gas for our buses. So it's a very slim margin that we're operating on in order to keep the rest of the district running with the appropriate curriculum and supplies that our teachers and kids need.
I'm going to do my best to split these up, just kind of some general statements. Can't improve art times 4 to the same space. So in talking to our fine arts directors, we do have some strategies that we'll be able to improve on the existing spaces in order to accommodate the growing number of students here.
And I want to be, again, transparent. With the 2-story wing that we would build out here, it would hold 42,000 square feet. We gave out a number earlier that said that would add about 32 classrooms, 16 on each level. That'd be 16 classrooms that would be normal size that we would build at any other new site. That does not necessarily mean we would build 32 classrooms. We might have a larger one for makerspace. We may have a larger room to be used for an art room or some different things. I was just trying to add that 32 classrooms. That helps me to give me a visual of what we could do with those, and multiplying those, holding around 25 students throughout the day, and what it would, how we could best accommodate our students through that.
No concurrent in 8th grade.
I'll clarify. One of the things we do concurrent, you can only participate in concurrent enrollment, which is college courses, as a junior and senior. What we run into are students who have to meet some high school graduation requirements that are required by the state, so they don't have enough free hours in their day to participate in concurrent enrollment or Tulsa Technology or any other options that we have. So our goal would be to offer high school credit classes at the 8th grade academy, so those who are wishing to participate in that could work on some of those high school credits, check off some of those requirements, and free up hours during their day as a junior and senior. So,
Peer interaction is 0. Leadership with lowerclassmen for all.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Peer interaction is 0. Leadership with lowerclassmen for all.
That is, again, that's the negative, is that transition. 1 year at 8th grade, 1 year at 9th grade. They do not have those older students to mentor them, to show them again, the right way and wrong way to do things. I am very aware of that. That's a concern of mine, because I do like that concept that they have a class above them that they look up to, hopefully showing them the proper way and the expectations of high school students, what they should act like. That's why the talk yesterday about the 8th and 9th grade academy I put together, I would like to look into that more. Again, I am a student that went through South Intermediate. I went through the 9th and 10th grade. Was it utopia? Was it the perfect scenario back then? No, it was not. North Intermediate, 9th, 10th grade, it was not perfect. Was there a lot of great things about it? Yes. And one of those definitely was you've got a class above you to look up to and kind of show you the right way. And again, you're spending 2 years in that building. There's some pluses to that. I do understand that.
Current honor band is 7th and 8th grade, then only 8th grade by themselves, question mark?
The honor band, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the question about the current honor band is 7th and 8th grade, so would there be an 8th grade only honor band?
We do a local 8th grade honor band within the city. There is a district honor band that accommodates grades 7 and 8 at the middle school level. And there's lots of opportunities with combining to an 8th grade center versus and 6th and 7th with our offerings for kids. It would be pretty tremendous on the band side of it.
The rest of this card is just kind of some general statements, and I would encourage whoever wrote these questions or statements to visit with one of us afterwards.
Okay.
Have we thought about not building the event center at the high school and using that $25 million to build the middle school?
The event center was started back and approved by the board in January of 2021. It's going to help alleviate some space on the high school campus that we desperately need, both meeting spaces. It's going to add classroom space there within our programming of athletics and the arts. We're going to see some domino effects. We have already started that project, and we have some things we have to meet legally as part of our bond obligations, and since we started that in January and are going through that process there, it would be too late to pull back on that. But again, I think that's going to be of great benefit to the high school with adding more space on that campus that is desperately needed.
How would this 8th grade campus be any different than the 9th grade in regards to overcrowding, large classes, bullying, fights, etc.?
Well, I hope that we can, that's on me, that's on us, our team here, to address those things. I can tell you, I was a teacher for several years at a 9th and 10th grade academy over at Union. 9th and 10th grade is a very challenging age group. I think, as you both know, they're at an age where they somewhat think they're adults, but they're not quite ready for some of the freedoms. We've got to address that. Again, the 9th grade academy, I think we've got a great teaching staff there. The 9th grade age group, and I would say the 8th grade age group too, there's got to be a lot of supervision that you may not need at the high school. Again, we made a commitment at the semester to add an assistant principal there on the Freshman Academy campus to increase our supervision. Our plan is to add another counselor there next year. We've got a lot of students, I could say post-COVID or make excuses all day long, but we're at a time that we're going to meet students where they're at. We've got a lot of hurting students right now too. And I want to provide the counseling services for our kids to make sure they get the support they need. Because if a student is struggling emotionally, mentally, there are a lot of students, that deal with suicidal thoughts. We've got to do all we can to help them so that they can be academically successful. Our Freshman Academy does have some higher incidence of rates of discipline than the high school campus. I'm not going to say it's all that age group. All I can say is we are aware of it. We are focused on it. We've got great teachers there. We've got a great administrative staff that is addressing it, focusing on it. We had a tough couple of months earlier in the semester, and we tried to bring those parents in, get their input, talk about things, address the bullying, And if you have specific incidents that you would like to share with me or any of my team, I am glad to listen, to hear about it, because the more we know, the more we can address it.
The district already faces transportation issues. How will this be remedied with the 8th grade campus needing busing to a majority of the district?
Ms. Van Jackson, would you like to address that? She's over our transportation.
Good evening, and thank you for your question. With regards to transportation and busing, whether we have a 6th through 8th grade middle school or an 8th grade center, we would have to add transportation services. The benefit of having an 8th grade center with transportation is that we have the ability to look at some of the transportation services at the freshman academy, maybe share some of those services, and reduce the number of buses, routes, drivers that are needed.
Just to add to that, that's always going to be concern in BA. 128 square miles approximately in Broken Arrow. If you compare that to Union, they do have less students than us by, I think, about 4,000 or so total, but they only have 28 square miles. We've got a lot of coverage for our transportation, and adding just one rural route can add 10 minutes sometimes to a transportation route, and we want as less time as possible with our students on a bus. We don't want them on a bus for 45 minutes to an hour every day. I don't think that's good for kids. When I was a kid, I wouldn't want to do that, and I don't want it for our kids either.
Is the 8th grade academy just a fix rather than the best option?
That's what I want your feedback from. Are we dealing with the reality of rising construction costs? No doubt. That's it. It is what it is right now. If we had unlimited money, it would be tempting to me to build a complete $55 to $60 million 8th grade academy on the freshman academy campus, have a 2-year, ability where those kids are on the same campus, have the crossover to do that, being able to get a road out a different way to alleviate some of that traffic. We've got to deal with the financial constraints that we're in. Again, I just want to share this option with you, get your feedback. I feel like there's some pluses to it, and that's why I want to share it. That's why I'm having the forum. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm just making this decision, think it's the best, and we're just barreling forward with it. I want your input, your thoughts. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not married to either one of them. Our team isn't full bore ahead, but I, again, feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I wouldn't be sharing with you some other options, thinking about them, listening to our staff on some other ways that we can do some things. I want to look at everything. The world is changing. We talk a lot with our chamber and how we can develop a workforce in Broken Arrow that brings jobs into Broken Arrow, that our students want to stay and grow up here and continue building a great community. We want that people want to live, work, and play. And it's not like it was 30 or 40 years ago. It's a challenge, and it's a moving target. So, that's one of the things I will tell you, too. I would be prepared to say if we did this 8th grade academy and it was a complete disaster in 5 years, it wasn't the way to go. I feel like we could go back. I've thought about this. We could go back to 5 middle schools. We could always use the classroom space that was built on this campus and go back to that model if we had to. I don't want to do anything that handcuffs us again in the future as our district grows, gets bigger, or a downturn in the economy could make things slow down dramatically, and we have to, I don't want to be in a situation too where we're closing schools. That's not healthy for a district. So just thinking about things through, and again, the discussion, I get great feedback. We take that back to our team, and we do talk about it and weigh the pros and cons of things.
What costs do you see for the 8th grade option? I presume construction costs. So with the classroom building, the auxiliary gym, the additional cafeteria space, and the athletic field, the upgrade to the athletic field would consume the entirety of the $25 million that's available. Why not go back out for a revision to the bond since circumstances have changed?
In hindsight, that would probably be a great thing to do, but because we have already sold these bonds, we're not able to do that. I will tell you what I'm thinking about on the next phase 4. There is an elementary 17 that is scheduled to be built as part of that bond issue. That I would like to go out and revote that and get the feedback from the community that way of adding on to those sites that there were alternates placed on the construction documents when we were taking bids. So there is it Highland Park, help me out, Aspen Creek, there's 4 or 5 schools. Rosewood, that there were pods designed, and if we had the money, we could have added those pods. The cafeteria space, the gym space that was built on, the art space can handle more students. I would rather, again, I want to be a good steward of taxpayer money, take those dollars, spend them on adding 2 current ones instead of increasing the number of elementary schools. Again, the more schools you add, it becomes sometimes challenging to manage that many. Again, finding the right principles for them. Again, I'll look at Jinx and some of the surrounding districts. They have 3 or 4 elementary schools. We have 16. And again, I love some of our smaller elementary schools. Oakcrest and Rhodes and Linwood, great places. But at the same time, is that the best use of our money that gets back to our kids that has the greatest impact?
With the intentionality planned for 6th and 7th, will there be more consistency between campuses?
I would hope so. We talked about this again with the 8th grade. Anytime we have thought to do something unique for our 8th graders at a certain campus, what's the first thing the other 4 campuses ask? When are you going to do that here? And again, having them at one place allows us to be more, funnel our money into that and have something unique that would provide some career paths. Is it virtual reality? Is it esports or whatever on that 8th grade academy campus that is targeted towards that age group? I'm hoping going from 5 middle schools and reducing that to 4, 6, and 7th grade centers, that we can be more equitable across that. And I'll tie that into what I just mentioned, our elementary schools. It's very difficult to be equitable across 16 elementaries. I don't want to get into the haves and have-not elementaries that, depending on where you live with, your kids are going to have more opportunities. I would love, no matter what school you went to, you get the same level of service, programming, opportunities, and the quality of buildings all across the district.
If we do the 8th grade model, what needs to happen to this site to make it age appropriate? Is there a tornado shelter?
There is a tornado shelter built. Does anybody have that information and how many students it would hold?
It will hold the entire student population here.
But that would be only the student population now. So if we added students,
I would have to double check that.
I don't know the answer. Whoever asked that, if they'll come see me afterwards, 1,400. I'm not sure, but I can find that out and get that information to you. But we do have. This is one of the sites that does have a rating And Mr. Dunn, do you know the rating on it?
It's a hardened space.
Hardened space. Because I think you got to be careful categorizing it as a true tornado shelter. There's FEMA requirements on that, on how you do, but it obviously would be safer in that hardened space, and that was part of that fine arts wing that we built. I mean, you can't get cell phone any usage in those areas. Are we getting close? Because I want to be able to release people if possible, and then anybody that did not get a question answered.
Looking at these, I mean, there's some that are really specific. They probably could come find us at our stations, and we could just answer them specifically.
Okay, let's do that, and we will stay late. We're spread out. If we don't have an answer for you, I promise we will get back with you. If you give us some contact information, we want to find that out. Again, thank you for listening. I don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. I think the more people we involved, get your input, pros and cons, it makes Broken Arrow Public Schools a better place to be. And thank you for taking your time tonight to come out.